that's the propaganda thing. So let's dissect that for just a minute. Venezuela is the source for the they are exporting terrorism to the United States. They are exporting, arguably, weapons of mass destruction to the United States in the form of drugs like fentanyl. I think it was genius to label that a weapon of mass destruction because it is. Okay.
Yep.
You've also got international terrorism being funded by the sales of oil. You've got property that was confiscated from the United States, from United States businesses, and contracts that were severed that America had already put up the payment for oil and all that. So, you've got the economic thing going on. So you've got a government that they're exporting all kinds of bad juju to not just the United States, but all over the world.
Quick break from the program to share with you something amazing. This is called SLOOP. It's actually SLUPP-332, but it's been shortened to SLOOP. And this thing mimics exercise. It seems too good to be true. I first shared this on my Substack, and I had Dr. Diane Kaiser, and we went through all the benefits of this, and the whole thing sold out. You can't get it anywhere really across the industry. And the people who are using it the most are athletes and bodybuilders and people who want to see extra performance in athletics, because this and preclinical studies with mice increased their endurance by 70% and their distance by 45%. I mean, it's incredible. And it's been shown to mimic exercise even when you're at rest. In preclinical studies with obese mice, they lost upwards of 12% of their body weight in 4 weeks, and it increased muscle. So this is really taking the industry by storm. It's actually not that expensive either. With my 10% coupon, it's about $80 for maybe a 2-month supply if you take 1 capsule a day. If you decide to up it to 2 capsules a day, because your dosage depends on what you want, then it's a 1-month supply. But Dr. Diane recommends doing 1 capsule a day until your body gets used to it. You might not see the same level of results right away that the mice did, but your body can get used to it and see if it's something that you really want to do. If you are interested in this, I will have a link below so you can try it yourself, or go to sarahwestall.com under shop. Remember to use the code Sarah to save 10%. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. I have Senator Mark Finchem joining the program. He probably became nationally known when he was running for Secretary of State under Kari Lake when she was running for governor. And then he was, in the Arizona Congress before then. He re-ran as a senator for Arizona and won his seat again. And he has continued to look at the election fraud that was going on in Arizona, but he also has been able to tie it to much bigger operations on not only fraud, but money laundering. And he's laying out what kind of laundering of money is going on and how there are members of government who are involved in this massive laundering campaign, how this is an operation that is bigger than just Arizona, but it's a countrywide kind of situation. And it shares how the laundering of money business operation actually functions as a business model and as a power model to gain power and to overthrow the United States and turn us into a different form of government. He's claiming that it's a Marxist move, probably more of a globalist, maybe Marxist, but a globalist domination worldwide kind of thing. He believes that the BRICS nations are behind it. He's going to lay out his case. We also talk about Venezuela, and I bring up Greenland, asking questions. He doesn't have answers to all that, but we have a really good conversation about it and how you can critically think and ask questions so that you can understand where things are going. He is not something that everybody who watches my show is going to agree with, but that's not the point. The point is to ask the questions. And I believe that everybody in this country is against fraud, right? And I think that those who are for fraud for these cases are just not getting it makes no sense. And so many of the people that are fighting to maintain and protect the fraudsters are also claiming to be for the downtrodden and for, they claim it's a class struggle. But the people funding this are the most wealthiest billionaires in the world. And so their side of the downtrodden is siding with the wealthiest in the world. There is a disconnect here that I don't think the people who are supporting this really understand what's behind what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be supporting it. They just don't know that they're being manipulated to this level, or it makes no sense. So I hope you listen to this all the way through. Before I get into that, it is New Year's, right? It's a new 2026. If you've not been looking into peptides, you need to. I've lost 25 pounds, well, probably about 30 pounds actually, but I am getting healthy. I am building muscle, and peptides have helped me a lot. I have a protocol that I used over the last year. It's the best thing I've used ever. It's amazing. I have a PDF that's on my Substack that you can see what I've done. I use retatrutide, which is it's a GLP-3 actually, not a GLP-1. It works in 3 different ways. It is the strongest, best thing, but it's pure. It doesn't have any additives. It's just the peptide. It is amazing, but you need to be responsible in how you use it. My peptide protocol on the 3 different things, the 3 different peptides that I use to not only lose weight really well, but also to maintain, to build muscle, is all in that protocol book. And you also have to be responsible because so many people are using it irresponsibly. You don't want to lose, people are saying they've lost 30 pounds in a month. That kind of crap, that is not healthy. You want to be able to lose weight at a reasonable amount. And, even 5 pounds a month is great, but you want to keep it off and you want to build muscle. So look at the protocol. Also, if you have questions, you should always ask a medical provider. I'm not a medical provider, but I have done a ton of research on this, and I work with the best lab in the country, I think, because they're clean. I'm willing to pay an extra $10 for something that's clean, a clean capsule. That is important. Okay, I'll have all the links below. You can also go to sarahwestall.com/shop and you can see the most popular peptides there. Let's get into this really good conversation I have with Senator Mark Finchem from Arizona. Hi, Senator. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a great honor. I think we've talked before in a previous show, and there's been lots going on since the last time we talked, but please, if you would call me Mark. Sometimes when I hear people say senator, I'm like,
who are you talking to?
Who are you talking to? I work for you. I really am a public employee. I know a lot of elected officials don't have that attitude, but I take great pride in that.
Well, excellent. I love that. And it's probably why you are willing to put your neck on the line and do what's right in important issues. And what we're looking at here is you're from Arizona and you're looking at the money laundering. Minnesota has been given so much of the press, but there are other states that are equally, if not worse. I would argue Minnesota, I bet you at the end of the day, percentage-wise, might end up being up there. But, it's a smaller budget than Arizona. It's a smaller budget than New York and California.
Right.
So the fraud, by sheer numbers that we're looking at some of these other states are absolutely astronomical, and Arizona being one of them, but it crosses over into multiple states. I know, because we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what you're doing?
Yeah. So I'll preface this with the 8 words that should terrify everybody. We're from the government and we're here to help.
Yeah.
What I don't think people, and I wouldn't expect people to think about this because it's just one of those things that it's so obvious to somebody who has to work in government. I mean, I don't have to. People ask me to. But whenever you have a government-funded program, which, quite frankly, they're taxpayer-funded programs, not government-funded programs.
That's right.
When you have a taxpayer-funded program in the government, it creates the opportunity for fraud.
And why is that? Let's explain why that is.
Well, think about it for a moment. You got taxpayer dollars going to pay for something that the taxpayers could do on their own, but for whatever reason, they don't. Whether they choose not to, or the government has created a monopoly a government monopoly on doing a thing. So let's take, for example, back in the day when I was much younger, it was the church that took care of the homeless and the downtrodden and the hungry. But today we have all of these U.S. government, state government aid agencies.
Yep.
All right. Anytime you put a dollar in the hands, and there are some good people out there, some well-intentioned people, and there's probably some good taxpayer sponsored programs. So I hate to use the broad brush of everybody, but on balance, the vast majority of programs are not only available to be used to steal taxpayer dollars, like the case in Minnesota. We have our own case here in Arizona,
Yeah.
which
We're
we're
gonna talk
trying to
about.
prepare now to put into the hands of the U.S. attorney here. But I mean, anytime you've got a taxpayer dollar going to a program that the government has, the bureaucracy has empowered a non-government organization to do, it's almost assured that there will be some level of financial abuse within that system.
Well, we've seen that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and we don't have
and
the
it's
transparency or the tracking to make sure it doesn't happen. That's
and
maybe where
it's
is the problem.
yeah, well, it's built into the system. I believe it was James Madison said, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government. And it's a long quotation, but if men were angels, which we're not, so there's this temptation whenever you see money
Mhm.
on the books that, oh, well, surely nobody will notice if we do it this way. And that's what's going on in Minnesota. I mean,
Isn't
you've
it
got,
in it before we get it, isn't it the same as a family? Like if you have money in your pocket, there's people that are responsible and there's
uh-huh.
people that have to spend it in all sorts of bad ways. It,
Yeah, the difference is this, though, Sarah. The consequence in the family environment is very real. You spend money on beer and cigars, you're not going to have money for macaroni and cheese.
yep.
It's that simple. And literally, as Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. Well, the buck stops at the family. Because if we stop and think about this for just a moment, it's the taxpayers who furnish the money to government to spend. This money, well, although the federal government just prints money like it's going out of style, the picture I'm trying to paint here is that the taxpayers are on the hook for paying for the bills that the government runs up, that the bureaucracy runs up.
Well, that's why people are tired of paying their taxes. I mean, there's a huge
Yeah.
movement saying, I don't want to pay my taxes because you guys are taking this tax money and you're spending it in ways that are
Right.
you're stealing it. It's like,
Yeah.
who's stupid
Yeah.
enough to give you money if you're just going to steal it?
So you have two different spheres of government. You have the federal sphere and you have the state sphere. The federal government, once it crossed the Rubicon of $1 trillion in debt, there was no going back. Now we're up at what, $30 trillion? There is no way that that is ever going to be paid off, and everybody knows it. Congress knows it.
Everybody
So
knows.
they are just, hey, you know what? Let's give USAID $100 billion to weaponize against the American people so they'll sit down and shut up and we can do what we want to do. That's what that's all about.
And
Okay.
and let me ask you, do you think most of the propaganda that we're seeing that's brainwashing the people is coming through USAID or organizations like that funding propaganda online and everywhere?
Well, not anymore.
But it was.
USAID has been, oh, absolutely. In fact, every penny. USAID was originally intended, when it was first stood up, to broadcast the message of the American way of life and why America is that city on the hill, that dreamboat of a city, that dreamboat of a country. And we still are to vast numbers of people across the planet. America is the place to go. That's why we had so many people come here from other countries. We are a generous people. We are benefactors to all over the world. However, when you have organizations like a rogue CIA that weaponized propaganda, I think they realized that the American people had had a gutful, and instead of pointing that outward, they turned it around and pointed it inward, and basically said, this whole notion of we the people, nah, not so much anymore. It's we the bureaucrats. It's we the intelligence community, and we're kind of busy lining our own pockets. And this orange man bad guy, he got in the way of our cash flow. So we had to try and kill him. More than once they tried to kill him. And that's the response that you get from organizations like Black Lives Matter. To this, I don't know if it's still the case, but originally when Black Lives Matter was stood up, if you clicked on their donation link, it went right to the Democrat Party.
Oh, I remember that. Because I did that. I
Yeah.
went to the Democrat
So,
Party, and it also had values after that. Then they had a front page, and then the
oh yeah, yeah,
values said to deconstruct the family unit. I mean, they were
yeah,
just so blatantly not about Black people.
yeah. It's when we saw this back with LBJ and the Great Society and what happened. We had the disintegration of the Black family.
Yeah,
Which,
it's not what they claim to be, and that's so
right.
sad. It's
That's
so
right.
sad.
So you now have, and that's what Marxism is. Marxism wants government to replace God. It wants government to be the God. Okay. So we're now fighting an insurgency. It's a Marxist insurgency. Fortunately, USAID is gone, but the remnants of it are still out there. Excuse me. And I mean, we just saw the takedown of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, NPR, PBS, all of those, because they had become so radicalized. It was all propaganda.
Well,
I think,
I listened to that. I just want to say I listened to it. It's still airing nonstop in Minnesota. I don't know what you mean by takedown, so I want to understand that.
well, the
Uh,
federal government funding
that yes, and there's
that
no
was the takedown.
there's no justification because I like to listen to all I like to know where people are coming from, right? Because you can't be informed unless you
Yeah,
understand where they're coming from. That's super important.
right.
And so I listen to them and I'm like, wow, I like their presentation better because I don't like the fighting and the BS sometimes that I see on the other side. It's always like this warrior behavior. I don't like
Yeah.
that. But I can read through like 30% of it
Right.
is propaganda. And that bothers me too. So I have to like, okay,
Well, they
I'm
want
sorry.
to,
And I represent a lot of people out there. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, they want to present the softer, gentler face of Marxism. Yeah,
Well,
we may get our way by the muzzle of a gun, but it's going to be a softer, gentler way.
Well, it's just that they're presenting all the issues in a way that is lacking the context, and they make it sound so.
Right.
They present it in a way that is that somebody who's more educated, if you went to a bunch of schools, they would prefer that method, right? They want a more intellectual conversation. But
Yeah,
then in the intellectual conversation, they fail to talk about, they only show you a slice. And then they
right.
present it in a way that's more caring and more sophisticated. But they missed out on all this other stuff that would give you a whole nother perspective on what
Right.
they're talking about.
Yeah.
That's propaganda, and they're really good at it.
So there's no bull here. Okay. I don't put up BS. And what we see with many organizations in the public sphere is they try and wrap propaganda as, oh no, the election deniers. They use the lexicon of New York Times and Washington Post and all of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, all of these extreme left views Which, by the way, woke, you go broke. They're going broke. The legacy media is imploding. That's one of the reasons my friend at yournews.com, um, he's hired 50,000 journalists
Oh
who are
my
out of work,
God.
who are
Oh
out of
yeah. Oh
work now.
yeah. Yournews.com. That's Sam. Yeah.
He's got some of the best journalists on the planet now working for him because they had such a gutful of what they were told to write by editorial people, even though they're journalists. So
They weren't
what we
journalists,
saw is the
right?
substitution of journalism with editorialism, not grounded in fact, but promoting a particular point of view.
Well, and the
So you,
problem I had, and I wanted to, you talked about election deniers. That was an adjective they would use, they still do today. They add it to every single time they do this, the reporting on it.
yeah,
And so they're planting in your mind that anybody that questions the election is election denier.
that
January
is
6th, they do the same thing with January 6th.
all right. So that is fifth generation warfare.
Yep, it
It's
is.
the battle for the mind. This is a fantastic series of books written by my good friend Boone Taylor, or I'm sorry, Boone Cutler, who has recently passed away, and General Michael Flynn. This is the textbook on how to spot and counter propaganda. And the purpose of propaganda is to divide us. So I have a response for anybody. And by the way, election denier came about, from what I'm told, as a result of the November 30th, 2020 ad hoc committee hearing that I convened as a state representative for the Maricopa County election. It was an inquest, and we took 10 and a half hours of testimony about what happened. And the next thing you know, in the AP style guide, anytime you spoke of a conservative who questioned the election, you had to use the term election denier. Now, we've actually turned that on its head. We're not election deniers. I never denied that there was an election. We are, however, fraud affirmers.
Fraud affirmers. That's the
Okay.
tech. Well, it's kind of like truthers. They try to weaponize truthers, and then everybody's like, "Okay, I'm a truther." It didn't
Yeah,
work because it was like, "I'll be
right.
that," and so they
That's kind of
learned
like
from that and did
that's
it
kind of like
differently.
when Hillary Clinton called us all deplorables. The next thing you know, 300,000 T-shirts are flying off the shelves. I'm a deplorable.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It doesn't always
there,
work.
yeah, there's these things that happen where they try to create buzzwords. For example, no kings. All right, let's just use that. That's another propaganda move, by the way.
Sure, of course.
It's part of the color revolution thing. I find it very interesting that the people paying for no kings are kings.
Well, I mean, in the sense of they're multi-billionaires. Yes.
Yes, you've got the billionaire class all around the world that doesn't like Donald Trump because he's screwing with their cash flow.
That's right. That's who's behind it. And
That's
they like to claim that it's a class warfare, but they're being funded by the upper class. They
right.
and what is that? Is that their ability to think through what it they're manipulating the easiest people to manipulate? I mean, it's easier to manipulate people than to inform them, right?
Yeah.
The
Well,
sad truth.
but you inform them with what you want them to know.
That's what they're doing. But that's
Okay.
manipulation. I think that's manipulation.
It is
True
manipulation.
informing is developing critical thinking skills, giving them all the information you possibly can so that they can critically think on their own.
Well, no, I would disagree a little bit. I think that when you develop critical thinking skills, you're actually developing the skill of discernment.
That's right.
Now, not
Yep.
everybody is blessed with the skill of discernment. Some people it comes by them naturally. Then other people, it takes a while. Here I am, 68 years old, and I'd like to think in the last 10, 15 years, I've really sharpened my ability to discern BS from legitimate. So here's an example.
We weren't as
The
good. Yeah.
2022 election, where Carrie Lake and I were running. Carrie was running for governor. I was running for the Secretary of State Lieutenant Governor position. And to bring this full circle to public broadcasting, In Phoenix, there's a show called Horizon, which is the public broadcasting. Now, the whole point of public broadcasting was to try and bring the right together with the left and try to winnow down truth and accurate information.
Yeah, do the best you can at giving a balanced approach so that people
Right.
can, yeah,
So,
that's admirable, by the way. But go ahead.
so it is when it's actually done.
That's right.
Okay. So we have this hosted. I'm not sure what it was. It was where the Democrat candidate and the Republican candidate, the two nominees from the two major parties, were on stage with two individuals from Horizon. It was billed as a debate, but I think it was more like a discussion. And within about 60 seconds, it was 3-on-1 throughout the entire hour. In fact, so much so that even Democrats got pissed off because it was so blatant that the two clowns that were supposed to be moderators were actually advocates for the opposition.
They got too brazen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, now it's not that they had an agenda that they wanted to push, and they knew that they had to do certain things. And quite frankly, we already know now, with everything that we've learned in the fullness of time, why they could not abide by Kerry Lake, Mark Finchem, and Abe Hamaday being in office. They knew that the governor would give the Secretary of State top cover, that Mark Finchem would probably do an audit of the election software that was running on machines in Arizona. And then when we found the nefarious code, which is embedded in it, and the endpoint access that occurred. Now, there's people who are going to say, oh, Finchem's crazy again, and he's talking about flipping votes. Okay, hard news. We've got the receipts.
Just a quick break from the program. I need to share with you in urgent manner about scam gold IRAs and the important need to make sure that you're working with a trusted company in the precious metals space. I have had hundreds of people come to me now where they have lost 50, 60, 70% of their life savings in these scam gold IRAs. We are having nearly 100% success rate getting their money back. If you have put your life savings into a gold IRA, I implore you to look and see if you have been scammed. Don't trust the company that sold it to you. Make sure you understand what you can get as a buyback value for the gold or silver that you have in your IRA. If you have noticed a significant drop in what you invested, you have more than likely been scammed. We can help you, and there's no shame. Go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin, fill out that form, and we will help you get your life savings back. Well, but here's the deal, Mark. If they aren't willing to actually let people look at the software, who is the one that should be defending themselves? It shouldn't be you.
Exactly.
If they're not allowing us to look at the software, it's you that should be defending yourself.
Sarah,
it's obvious. That's critical thinking skills
Come
101.
on now, Sarah, stop. It's proprietary.
I know, but that's thinking.
Yeah, that's the argument they use.
I know, but that's like they make themselves illegitimate because they won't let us look at it, and it should be transparent when we're talking about voting software. Give me a break. There's nothing that sophisticated about voting software that should. I have a computer science background. It's pretty straightforward math. If the math isn't right and you're screwing with it, that's what we need to see. And it doesn't have to be proprietary.
Yeah, what we first discovered November 30th, 2020, was something called fractional tabulation.
Yep.
Okay, wait a minute. That's an oxymoron. If you're tabulating, it's ones and zeros.
Yeah, it's really
if you're
simple.
calculating, it's decimals.
It's a very
So how
easy
do you
algorithm.
Here's the punchline. How do you have, in one case, a .96 vote, and in another a .104.
You don't.
You
You
don't.
don't. You
It's
just
ones and
don't.
zeros.
That's the
Okay.
answer. You
And
don't.
that's one of the things that we found in the first few hours of testimony.
Yeah, you just don't. Okay, so that's fraud. And then they tried to, it's amazing how this is why it's fifth generation warfare. I did a whole series on it too.
Yeah.
And with Brighteon. And it was a 10-part series where I looked at it from all sorts of different angles.
Mhm.
Military experts also on fifth generation and mind control, because there's more to it than just,
Mhm.
you know, and the military just they want to bypass the military and go directly to the people and control people. But regardless, you are also, I mean, I could do a whole hour on this, or we could do a whole hour on this topic, but I
Yeah, we
want to
could.
talk about the fraud that you're seeing in Arizona that's taking it to a whole nother level. I mean, it's already been, that level has already been there for a long time. It's just now, hey, people, we really need to show you how bad this is.
Yeah. So there are people that just cannot bring themselves to believe that we've had election tampering since the election after George Washington.
Yeah, it's a reality, right?
So don't say, "Oh, this is the first time ever." No, and you can't. Our elections are perfect. We're the gold standard. Anytime you hear that BS, you know that they're running dogs for the people who are actually covering up what's going on. So what we've got in Arizona actually is a nationwide problem. Our research has been presented to the Department of Justice. Yes, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, IRS, criminal, HSI, the Homeland Security Investigations. There's a few other law enforcement organizations. I'm sure that I'm missing somebody. So, fellas, please don't take it personal. We presented the information on the how it's being done, and we were able to identify a significant number of individuals that are engaged in the practice. No wonder the Democrats have got hundreds of billions of dollars to engage in election tampering. There's money that's flowing in from probably China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and maybe even Brazil. The BRICS nations that want to disrupt America's election system. They want to get rid of the whole America First agenda. This is interfering with their New World Order because they can't have a strong America and have a New World Order, because as long as there's an alternative, that's the funny thing about Marxism. Marxism cannot stand to have an alternative that it has to compete with. Think about that for a minute. I mean, it makes perfect sense when you stop and think, okay, who's actually objecting to making America great again? It's the media that is controlled by the very same people that would have you believe propaganda is news. So now we've got an organization, the Election Fairness Institute, that engages in research projects. If people want to know more about our organization, it's goefi.org. We don't accept government contracts. I'm the executive director there. So I wear two hats, state senator and executive director. But we're eyeball deep in this stuff. And we have mapped where the money's coming from, how they're doing it with real estate and other devices, where the money is probably going to. But because we're a private enterprise, a 501c3, so if people want to make a contribution, we're welcome. We don't have access to some of the investigative tools that law enforcement has, particularly things like FinCEN. FinCEN is the organization that tracks large contributions, not contributions, large deposits in banks. So if you've ever had a check, it used to be 10,000, now it's 5,000. If you have a check or a deposit over $4,999.99, you have to fill out a KYC AML. That's Know Your Customer anti-money laundering document that goes with that deposit. and the bank is supposed to notify the federal government, Sarah Westall just put $5,000 into the bank. And that's going to go in your savings account. And perhaps it'll sit there and age for 60 days, and then they no longer pay attention to it. Well, imagine buying a house that's worth $300,000, and there is a wire that comes into the escrow company for your $300,000 house on the same day you buy it, also for $300 million.
Yep.
But there's no bank. The mortgage that you got for your $325,000 house, you got a $300,000 note from pick a bank. I don't want to say any names because I don't want to disparage the banks. They have a lot more money than I do, and I don't want to get sued. So you have the bank deposits the money into escrow. The escrow officer then transmits the money to the seller, and you've got your house. Well, at the same time, Sarah Westall, who sits on the board of directors of Act Green, a $300 million deposit comes in to the same escrow officer, but there's no bank associated with it. That's what they call a hard money loan. It's a hard money deposit into escrow. When escrow closes, the money goes someplace because we're not law enforcement. We don't know where it goes, but we have seen this time and time and time and time again.
So they just laundered 300
thousands
million.
of times.
They just laundered $300 million is what they did.
Yeah. Through the escrow process for a property.
And is it mostly almost always through mortgage type situations?
Oh no. No.
What other
This is just one of the scams.
what other, the mortgage one makes sense, and that's what people hear about all the time. What other ways, and I know the daycare centers is what they're doing in Minnesota, right? And
Yep.
all the autism centers and all that stuff.
Yep.
All the charity type organizations. What
Right.
other methods are they using to launder money? I mean, every way
Well,
they can, right?
Yeah. So here's one that was reported to my office as a state senator 2 weeks ago. And it's kind of complicated, but I'll give you the short version. So you have somebody who is seeking treatment for drug dependency, or let's say substance abuse dependency. And they are on what's called Access. It's the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, AHCCCS. Okay, it doesn't offer healthcare and it doesn't contain cost. There's no truth in the name, but
Well, yeah.
it pays insurance money to providers. Well, there's a handful of providers that have figured out that the marketplace insurance pays a whole heck of a lot more money than Access does. So you have Bob Smith comes in and says, "Hey, I need help with my heroin addiction." Okay, great. We need to have your ID, your social security card, all of your information, fill out this intake form. And then somebody goes in the back office, picks up the phone and calls Access and says, "Hey, I want off Access." And then they turn around and they call the marketplace and say, "I want to get insurance to cover my addiction problem." Okay, great. Welcome. It's going to cost you $40. Well, do you take a credit card, which is actually a gift card? They pay for the first month, and the next day they start drawing $1,300 a day. I'm not kidding you.
No, I know you're not. And that's
And
small
there
potatoes compared to the 300 million. But if you
hundreds.
do it, yes.
There are hundreds of providers who have popped up like mushrooms all over Arizona. We know that this is all over the United States because bad guys love sharing their secrets with other bad guys.
It's so crazy. And you know what the thing is that's why the taxpayers are like, I don't want to pay my taxes so that you can allow them to steal it. And then the other thing that bugs me, NPR, because I listen to them, they sit and talk for the whole time. They'll have a whole shows on all these people who are downtrodden because they don't have the resources to pay for these people who are out on the streets or homeless or who really need help. Meanwhile, 90% of those resources are being stolen. And then they're
Yeah.
fighting the people who are trying to uncover the resources being stolen. It's like, what kind of clown world are we in?
This is going to sound like an ultra simple solution, but Occam's razor, the simplest solution is almost always the right solution. How about we return that responsibility to the churches, to the faith community? And instead of taxing people into oblivion, we stop taxing them and we have the money stay in their pockets. Nobody spends money more effectively and more efficiently than the person who actually has to earn it. Federal government does not create jobs. It actually is a drag on the economy. So if you eliminate jobs, here's a grand example. Department of Education. They don't educate, they regulate. We've been told by teachers, I love teaching, but I hate having to comply with all of the insane regulations that the Department of Education has pushed upon the school. Yeah. I spend a third of my day in regulatory compliance as opposed to teaching. Great. How about we just leave that money with the school instead of sending it to the Department of Education to send to the school? I could never understand, for example, why do you get $1 rebate on a box of cereal for $4? How about you just charge $3 for the box of cereal?
That's because a certain percentage of people aren't going to send it in, and then you save money.
I know.
But
I know why. It's a rhetorical question.
I know it's just this. Okay, but let's talk about the churches, because what happened, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we need an educational process here. The reason why government started doing it is because there's people are involved, and so churches weren't perfect either, and so then they used that as an excuse to get the government to do it. But there could be a way to have churches do it, religious, the faith community, where the faith community is a broad community, right? Even if this particular faith doesn't meet your criteria, there's all sorts of, that's why the Quakers were formed back in the day, right?
Right.
They believed in complete equality, and they had that's so much of our entire Constitution and our equality and all that stuff came from them. So but they weren't. There's all sorts of things that could work. Go ahead.
Here's part of the problem, okay? So, for example, the Salvation Army, great organization, all right? But if you're going to stay at a Salvation Army shelter, you can't drink tonight. You can't use your drugs while you're on the property. So if you've got the faith element that's involved in this, people really do have to change their behavior, and they don't want to.
That's a big part of it, I would think.
So you've got a government that panders to the people who want to live their lifestyle the way they want to, but they don't want to have to pay for the consequences.
But okay, and this is where I push back too, that the government, and another reason why the government did it is because there's some bad actors who liked to keep the drug trade going. And they didn't want if they are in control of it, the drug trade can flourish more, especially if the people who are involved in the drug trade decide they run for office, or they're funding their favorite political candidate.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. That's how it works.
Yeah. Excuse me. I kind of got this idea. I'm a huge fan of Victor Davis Hanson. And as I'm listening to his last few podcasts before he went in for his medical treatment, it occurs to me that we're talking about the greatest threats to humanity.
Yep.
And this is so anti-Mises and Hayek. I'm an Austria economics guy, okay? But the greatest threat to humanity, cash flow. Because and I'll qualify it, every bad guy out there is focused on one thing, cash flow.
I would even say a lot of good people are too, but go ahead.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, the root of all evil is the love of money. Okay.
Yep.
Now, yes, I am a guy who is focused on cash flow. It's how I pay my bills. But when I say the threat to humanity is cash flow, It's the people who are misusing it. It's the drug dealers. It's the human traffickers. It's
Yep.
the thieves who like to take public assets and use them for their own purposes, namely stealing. Okay.
Or
So
manipulation or
yeah,
whatever else they're
yeah.
trying to do. Yeah.
So you look at let's look at Venezuela for a moment. Okay. So we just had a little action, a little fracas down in Venezuela. Most people don't know that 2 decades ago, Venezuela was perhaps one of the most affluent South American nations out there. Argentina now apparently has taken that over because Milei is a genius. But what happened, you have Marxism come in and confiscate everything from everybody and keep it to themselves. Okay. So now you got the Venezuelan people are saying, we kind of like what President Trump just did. He kicked out a dictator, and we want to go back to the days of prosperity. So, I kind of chuckle a little bit as long as we're having a free-form conversation about all things. They're saying that President Trump is engaged in the Monroe Doctrine. I would hate. I, I think engaged in the prosperity doctrine
It,
because his goal is not to control, but to return power to the people so that they can prosper.
but was it our job here? This is one thing. I think Venezuela has more going on than just that
Oh yeah.
because it's not our job to go in and fix a country's. I mean, if that was our job, we'd go in a lot of other places besides Venezuela.
No, this
There's more going on there
yeah,
than
the
just
mission
that.
was not to fix Venezuela.
That's a good
The
propaganda
mission,
thing, but it's not the reason.
yeah, no, that you're right. That's the propaganda thing. So let's dissect that for just a minute. Um, Venezuela is the source for the I'm sorry, they are exporting terrorism to the United States. They are exporting, arguably, weapons of mass destruction to the United States in the form of drugs like fentanyl. I think it was genius to label that a weapon of mass destruction because it is. Okay.
Yep.
You've also got international terrorism being funded by the sales of oil. You've got property that was confiscated from the United States, from United States businesses, and contracts that were severed that the America had already put up the payment for oil and all that. So, you've got the economic thing going on. So you've got a government that they're exporting all kinds of bad juju to not just the United States but all over the world. And they're influencing their neighbors. And they now have deployed Tren de Agua, uh, organizations like that to American soil. All right. In other words, they want to go into fifth generation warfare and guerrilla warfare with the United States.
So
Why?
basically, go ahead.
Because the New World Order needs to have soldiers. See,
So
it's all connected.
you're saying that the administration saw them as a risk to our sovereignty, to our way of life, and it wasn't just. It's nice to say that Maduro was so bad and the people themselves don't want him. Okay, that's fine, but that's not. I mean, anybody, a thinking person who's been studying this for a while knows that's not the reason.
Yeah,
But you're saying that because of their chaotic environment, their communistic, their Marxist views, the way they were managing things, the corruption they were having there, they were breeding this anti-US sentiment that was being exploited everywhere and shipped out everywhere and then
right.
harming our way of life. And
Yeah.
that was an attack on us and we needed to take care of it.
I
That's
guess
the argument, right?
it's a fine difference. What I'm trying to communicate is the people are celebrating his ouster. It's a little bit different than the way you framed it. They're celebrating somebody coming to help them. Okay. Now,
But we
the
wouldn't
other
help
piece,
anybody though, unless there was something else going on. But go
unless
ahead.
there's a state interest there,
Yes.
absolutely. So not only do we have cutting off drugs, cutting off human trafficking, cutting off sanctioned oil flow. We also have cutting off tampering in elections. Venezuela was the source of Smartmatic software, which has now been identified. I think it's up to 72 nations have had their elections tampered with using these products. CIA.
Yeah, well, I just posted
So,
a thing from CIA Gate, which is a deep investigation into
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, you know what that is.
So you go to the head of this, the fish rots from the head. Okay. So you go to the head of the snake, head of the fish, and you take that out to reconstruct a nation that should be friendly to the United States, should not be. I mean, election tampering by another sovereign is an act of war.
That is,
People
yes.
need to remember that.
Okay, so now taking out just the leader, is that, because obviously the administration is still in place. So did they, for, everybody but the leader, now, are they just sending a message to the other people in administration? You guys better freaking not do this. And they did alliances. They had to have prepped it, had communication with other people in the administration and said, we're going to take this guy out and we expect you to play ball. Is that really what's happening behind the scenes?
Nah, I doubt it.
So then what's happened? Why did they take out the top one and not
There's
the rest? What's going
it's
on?
it's a deeper apprehension strategy than just taking one guy out.
So you think that there's more operations coming here?
There are other individuals who probably their career is over. They'll be ejected from the military or the Venezuela State Department or the government apparatus. Yes.
But it looks like they were talking to people in high levels of their political administration and
Right.
that there's
And that's
insiders cooperating because otherwise it's like, what's going on?
yes. No, that's that. Okay, so I think you're right. The U.S. has been very transparent. Secretary of State Rubio has been very transparent. Look, we're not in here to replace everybody. It's your government. We took out the head of your government because of his corruption. Cowboy up. Who's the next one in line? And if a a viable government can be built around a leader from that nation, we're happy to help you. But don't stab us in the back. So now that we have also probably gotten it, well, I know for a fact, we've gotten our hands on the individuals that did the programming for election tampering, the software, root software itself. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Maduro is going to be singing like a songbird and talking about because he's right now he
And
wants to
that's
get
what they
his
want.
they want to get the information about what elections do you have personal knowledge that you tampered in and
That would
how
be
long has
great.
this been going on? How have you accomplished it? Where have you
Do you
accomplished
think
it?
he'll sing?
I think he's going to sing like a songbird because think about this. Here's just one scenario. Him and his wife both have been arrested. All right. Do you guys want to live together at a country club prison, or do you want to live separately at opposite ends of the country in maximum security?
A quick break to share with you this wonderful product called Masterpiece. It is proven to taking out graphene oxide, aluminums, heavy metals, microplastics. They also are looking at these MAC addresses, and there's more and more research and there's studies coming out. There's 4 documentaries that are being made on their studies of how they're able to disable MAC addresses that are somehow put into people. This is amazing stuff. I highly recommend. I buy a whole box of it and I make sure my whole family has it. If you are interested in trying this and really cleaning up your body from microplastics, graphene oxide, you can also test yourself. You can get your hair tested, see what you are before and what you are after you use this for a few months. They stand behind what they're doing with tests, studies, and real results. And look for the link below where you can buy Masterpiece yourself. It'll provide you a discount, or you can go to sarahwestall.com under shop. But they have a lot of leverage on them, yes.
It's your choice.
They have a lot of leverage. So it will be interesting watching this thing play out. I'm always just like, okay, I want to watch all this stuff play out and see
Right.
what happens because everything you're saying is like, okay, that and we have actors in our country too
I'm
who are
glad you went
hard to
there.
deal with.
So now we've got a situation where the money flow has been, the spigot's been turned off in a lot of different places. Now, do we have more to do? Oh, yeah. We got a lot to do.
Well, I think the fight just started.
Oh, yeah. The fight just started. And one of the things that we can do to take back control of our election system is what other countries have done, and that is reject the use of electronic calculation and go to paper ballots that are counted by hand at the precinct level.
It's simple. It's the most easiest algorithm too. That's what's so frustrating. It's like there's
Yeah.
no magic. It's like addition. It's
Yeah.
like, come on. It's like
Well,
a
and there's a great little it's a meme that hit the Twitter universe here a couple of days ago. It's a it's a kid with a ballot box, and it says hand counting ballots on election day at the precinct level. So easy, a fifth grader can do it. And it really is so easy, a fifth grader can do it.
or a third grader. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Greenland because I want now that we're going into geopolitics, uh, what's going on there? I mean, it's kind of weird. It's like we want to take over. Denmark has control of Greenland, supposedly. I didn't even know all the background on Greenland. I'm like, oh, I didn't know Denmark. I thought Greenland was its own sovereign nation, but apparently they're under Denmark. And now Trump wants to take over Greenland. What is really going on? Because
I
that
wouldn't
seems weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he wants to take over implies that he wants to invade Greenland and take it from somebody.
What's really
Um,
going on then?
I think what's going on, first of all, their location on the globe is
Strategic.
pretty important. It's even more than strategic for the interests of America.
It's like
Uh,
Hawaii in the Pacific.
yeah, kinda. But you've also got some resources, natural resources. Um, the left would say, "Oh, you're going to exploit their natural resources." No, one person's exploitation is another person's harnessing. They have immense geothermal opportunities. Um, there's a lot to that equation. President Trump, I think, has been offering that up as an option for the people of Greenland.
Mhm.
How would you like to become a U.S. territory? Because there are some benefits that go along with that. Not Congress, that's not a benefit. But there are benefits that go along with being aligned with, being formally recognized as a U.S. territory. Like, for example, Puerto Rico. When
That's right.
bad things
Yeah.
happen in Puerto Rico, who's there to help Puerto Rico rebuild? Uncle Sam. So I'm not clued in on all that's going on with relationship to Greenland, but I do know that there are hotspots all over the world. We're having a strategic presence so that we don't have to fly 12 hours to do a mission for something. It's more like 4 or 5 hours or 2 or 3 hours. That is very helpful to guarding not just the interests of the United States, but I would say the interests of people, freedom-loving, liberty-loving people all around the world. I
But is
went.
that our job? I mean, that kind of stuff isn't our
It's
job.
well,
But
it's
but
not, but it's
but do they?
tangential. Their interests are tangential to ours, and I appreciate the point you're making. We're not the policemen of the world, nor should we be.
Mhm.
This isn't about policing. This is about advancing our interests to a limit, and bringing other people along with us.
So
That's the best way.
basically, it gets back to the thing, if we don't have this, then we are at risk. I mean, they have to get to that point. We are from a State Department perspective, we need something like this. Otherwise, we're at risk. Why is not having a base there and having a NATO alliance good enough?
I'm not read into that, and I don't.
Okay, that's fair. No, that's fair. I mean, those are the questions I would ask is
Yeah.
okay, what and that's the questions we should be asking.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, that's what a critical thinking populace, vox populi, those are the questions we should be asking our government. Mr. Trump, instead of this inane BS that the reporters all have their hand up, and they ask them stupid questions.
They do.
Mr. Trump, could you explain the theory of the case for us to adopt Greenland? Can you lay that out for the American people so that we understand?
That's right, because right now it's just all propaganda. I want to understand what is the theory behind it for real. I don't, and that's why people like me are like, I don't trust you. Not just him, but I mean, I don't trust anything because it's like I can tell when I'm hearing propaganda versus the real reasons. I want the real reasons
Yeah.
because that's bullshit reason.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think that to get back on track with uh, the money money laundering thing,
Which is
excuse
extremely
me.
important.
Um, we have U.S. attorneys who have been briefed. We have some who are either planning to adopt or are taking action to adopt cases in multiple locations around the country. And what that means is they're going to go after somebody or a group of somebodies. Um, Scottsdale, Arizona is the center of the universe for a lot of that. We've got some information that we'll be presenting to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona here in the not too distant future. But the Election Fairness Institute, we study process and those inputs and outputs of the process. When we see massive amounts of money going into a political actor, that's the kind of thing that makes you go, huh.
That's right.
So, when I first ran for office, my first election, I think, was like $48,000 to run the campaign. Now they're up in the 230, 240, $250,000 range. We didn't have that much inflation over 12 years. This is now a fight for power and a fight of freedom loving folks against Marxism.
Well,
We
they're
have the Marx.
realizing that the lower level offices, not just the president,
Oh,
not
yeah.
just the senators, they're
School board,
realizing
town
that
council.
everything, and those were ripe for picking. If we just put some money into this, we'll get all these school councils, we'll get all these judgeships, we'll get all these because nobody's really making an effort. They're doing it like you were at
Yeah.
first. Being a state senator, it really didn't have a huge budget but that's where all this power's at.
Right. And then so here's another thing that it causes me great consternation. They call these races nonpartisan. School board needs to be nonpartisan because education is a bipartisan issue.
It should be.
No. Same with town councils, same with county boards of supervisors. I want to know what is the political philosophy that the individual who is running for office subscribes to. Are you a free spending Democrat? Are you a hardcore constitutional conservative? Are you a fiscal spendthrift? I want to know where your political stand is because if I don't have confidence in where you're coming from politically, how am I supposed to have confidence enough to vote for you? Now, in most cases, for example, in Arizona, nonpartisan races, the only thing that's nonpartisan about them is how they appear on the ballot. It doesn't say Republican or Democrat. It just has your name.
Well, and that's like hiding what you are. But I gotta tell you, our
That's exactly the point I was trying to make. They're hiding behind that, and
well,
we've got to stop that.
And that's a fair criticism. I do know that, like in my area, where some of the people who decided, they're just going to run as nonpartisan, like my county has the lowest taxes in the state, which is incredible. One of the lowest. I'm in Minnesota, and we have one of the lowest taxes in the country. And the person who our county commissioner is, he was a Democrat, and now he's running it kind of like you would have. So I kind of like what a Republican kind of would in a lot of other areas. So you can truly become a nonpartisan in the way you manage things if that's your goal. And you have to be forced into this Republican Democrat party system. And a lot of times people aren't, they just want to look at issues. But I get your point. If you are about low taxes, giving the power back to the people, you should be telling people that.
Once again, if men were angels,
You're right. You're
we
right.
wouldn't need government. Okay.
We
So
wouldn't.
I think that it's it's probably the best way to hide your true agenda by running as a nonpartisan candidate, because what you're saying is, I'm for sale. Now that's a cynical way to put it. But if you're truly nonpartisan, well, I'm going to listen to everybody. No, you're not. You have you have a personal agenda, and don't be afraid. I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm as popular as I am. My response is, if you disagree with me, don't vote for me,
See, now I love
because I
that.
don't
And
want you to be disappointed with what
but I love
the
that. But
action I
see,
take.
but I kind of would go, this is a great conversation. I would say that I'm nonpartisan in a lot of areas because sometimes I agree on one side, something, but I could be very open. I like smaller government. I like more freedom. I like, that's kind of where my whole perspective is. I like to give people as much ability over their own lives as possible. Okay, that's my whole bias. But sometimes it's not always the Republicans that are in that camp, although
Yeah.
more often than not, it's them, but not all the time.
So I agree with you and I disagree with you. You're a conservative, but you're an issues voter. You're not a party line voter, just like me. Okay. I'm probably, I don't know, 80% Republican, uh, 10% independent, and I've got just enough space in there to, you know,
To work with the
that's
other side, right?
that's kind of a Democrat sounding thing, but I understand your point. I mean, you've got to have that space to appreciate the
Exactly.
colleagues that you have to work with that don't necessarily agree with you. But then all of a sudden, I mean, here's a grand example. I've been on the warpath for the last 6 months with the family courts in Arizona. What they are doing to families is absolutely evil. And I'm making it my business to try and cut their budget by 30% to get their attention and say, look, we're either going to do away with you or you're going to start following the flippin' law. You are not there to fix families. There's a reason they're divorced. You are there for the best interest of the child, not to line the pockets of lawyers
Yeah.
and allied healthcare workers and all of the various professionals that get paid under what? A court order. What you're doing is you're stealing money from the care, feeding, and rearing of children, and you should be damned ashamed of yourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay, so on our committee, we had Republicans and Democrats. The Democrat members are appalled at what's going on, but they're kind of caught in a bit of a conundrum because they love the courts and they love tinkering with families, but at the same time, they see the damage that's being done by the courts tinkering with families. So it's no issue in my experience at the legislature has been so complicated as this one. Because there are people that they really need to have a judge and they need to have mediation. But, there's some really good family court judges out there who basically, instead of allowing attorneys to inflame the passions of one side or another and run up the bill, they're, okay, you have 60 days to come to a resolution or we're going to go to trial.
They just get
And
it
it's
done,
not going to
right?
work well for you.
And sometimes they realize that these two sides are just going to, like you said, the attorneys create the issues to make more money instead of just, let's just get it done. And it's the
It's
best
all
thing for the
billable
kid.
hours.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
But so that's why I say, I just really think a lot of people, if we just looked at the issues and we got rid of some of those labels, that's the flip side of it. I get what you're saying. But if you just, okay, if those Democrats that didn't feel obligated to be a Democrat at that point, then they would probably, so I think so many issues, if we got rid of that, just let's just solve the issue, I think we'd be able to solve a lot more problems.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So
I
I
think
get,
that's
that's, there's always a pro and a con to everything. You are awesome. I love talking to you. This is a really good conversation. This is exactly the kind of conversations we need to be having. Honestly, we need more of this. So thank you so much. Where again can people follow you and learn more about the work that you're doing, uncovering fraud and working with families and everything that you're doing, which sounds great.
Yeah, there's a couple things they can do. So first of all, if they want to visit the Election Fairness Institute website and see what we do, goefi.org. We're a 501c3. If folks want to read some of my thoughts, I try to put out a Substack article once a week. It's markfinchem.substack.com. It's There is a free version, and if people want to get past the paywall and see some of the deeper thoughts, I do have deep thoughts once in a while. I'm you get a free couple of paid views. But also, if folks were about to start the legislative session in Arizona, and if they want to see what's going on in the legislature, if they go to azleg.gov, they'll be able to watch hearings real time that are happening with their government. I think that's so important.
That is
Um,
absolutely.
and then I guess the last thing I would say is, with the Election Fairness Institute, we have a number of projects that are going on right now. The biggest one is the money laundering research project. That takes money, and by the grace of God, we make payroll every other week. And our people don't make a lot of money, but they are dedicated to free and fair elections. So give us a look. Goefi.org. Thank you very much, Sarah. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.